English translation 324th contact. Monday, 8th of April 2002, 07:28 hours.
Both of you be heartily welcomed and salutations. This is a surprise, Quetzal. I was only expecting Ptah.
Actually, I wanted to surprise you too and asked Ptah not to inform you about my presence with him. I greet you.
Greetings as well, dear friend.
First, I will do my duty and do some necessary work regarding the changes to be made. So I will leave immediately and come back to see you later. I will see you then.
See you. Ptah, can I ask you a question before we have to get on with what you came here to do? Or is your coming here only in connection with Quetzal's work? By the way, I thought he was not going to do it until the end of the week.
He has to make some arrangements today so that he can make the actual changes later. For my part. However, I have various things to discuss with you, which relate to the concerns of the American grouping and to the drawing up of its statutes and contracts, with regard to which I have instructed you to present the necessary facts at the group meeting. Unfortunately, I had to find out on Saturday and yesterday afternoon that you did not mention important matters in your session. But first, put your question.
It is about this. Last night I received a telephone call from a woman in Munich and was asked whether I knew that in the night from the 6th to the 7th, that is from Saturday to Sunday, there was an impressive light phenomenon over Bavaria, and whether I knew what it was about. Do you know anything about this event? I promised the woman that I would ask you and then give her an answer when she calls me again the next weekend.
The incident is known to us, and there is nothing mysterious about it that needs to be concealed. In fact, it is true that two different events coincided which triggered the luminous phenomenon. The whole thing was about two objects crashing together towards the Earth and burning up due to the frictional heat that caused the remarkable luminous phenomenon. One object was a natural one, a so-called bolide, an oversized shooting star, as you would say, or a small meteor, while the second object was an artificial one, namely a larger piece of space junk created by Earth humans. The coincidence was that the bolide raced exactly into the orbit of this space debris and dragged it with it, whereby both entered the atmosphere and together they burned up for the most part. Consequently, only small parts fell to Earth unburned.
Aha, so that is the solution to the riddle. Then another question, if you permit.
Of course.
I was approached as to why in the great religions and sects, etc., the deity or main deity or supreme deity, that is, the main god or supreme god, is always male and not female. Do you know the reason for this? For my part, I guess that the reason lies in the imperiousness of the male. Since ancient times, religious and sectarian power has always been in the hands of men, so they have always given a male name and halo to the god or gods of their religion or sect, but also the fact that women were considered inferior beings and treated accordingly, without any intelligence, power, energy, abilities, etc. But all these values were only attributed to the man, so every god or deity and every idol, etc., could only be male. Only in certain mythologies of antiquity, and in former and later as well as present sects, it was and is possible that female deities appeared or can appear. But since ancient times they had to be subordinated to a male main deity, or supreme deity. And if women appear in any other manner, who appear in any function as priestess, minister, or other representative of religion, etc., then these are again classified as belonging to a male deity. If not as the representative or mouthpiece of God, then as his bride or maid, etc. In this connection, it is well known, for instance, that nuns of certain Christian denominations see themselves as the bride of Jesus, and so regard Jesus as their bridegroom.
I have nothing more to explain about this, because your statement corresponds to the actual events. For my part, I could not have explained everything better.
That is all the questions I have asked at this point.
Then I will come to my explanations. During our last conversation, I gave you instructions on how the statutes for the American Figu Group should be designed. However, as I said, you did not mention the exact regulations in your session, so I must mention them again and ask you to write down these important points when you write down our contact so that they are not forgotten some other time. The most important points that still need to be formulated in the statutes are the following. 1. Members of the American Figu Group must not be followers or supporters of the death penalty. 2. The American Figu Group must never be developed into any position of power in any form. 3. Each member must be free in his or her expression of opinion, and no sanctions or reprimands may be taken against him or her. 4. In financial, legal, judicial, and operational terms, any American Figu Group is responsible for its own actions in every case, and therefore the Mother Center of Figu, Switzerland, 8495, Hinterschmidt-Ruti, cannot be held responsible in any form for any damage or fallibility of an American Figu Group, neither morally, financially, nor judicially legally. In this respect, a separate mutual, written, and officially certified contract of necessity. 5. Matters which are organizationally related to the mission, such as printing of writings, books and translations into English or another language, if these materials are the property of the Mother Center of Figu, Switzerland, then they require a written permission from Figu, Switzerland. 6. Writings, books, materials as the property of Figu, Switzerland, which are translated into another language, may only be printed or published after a thorough examination by Figu, Switzerland with regard to their correctness. In each case, according to the regulations of Figu, Switzerland, Simjase Silver Star Center, Hinterschmidt-Ruti, the original text written in German must be printed or attached on the page opposite the foreign language. 7. Photos, slides, CDs, floppy disks, articles, writings, books, and all other materials which members or the American groups have given to the Mother Center of Figu, Switzerland. Simjase Silver Star Center, Hinterschmidt-Ruti. The original text written in German must be printed or attached on the page opposite the foreign language. 8. In each Figu grouping, all the members have the same value status, without distinction of position to be exercised, and consequently, neither the board of directors, nor the president, nor an ordinary member has different or more rights than another member. The rights are the same for all members of the group, and therefore without distinction, therefore any member can occupy any position on the board if appointed to do so. 9. If there is any kind of incorrectness, which in any gross measure is not in accordance with the rights, violates the national laws, or is destructive to the Figu Mother Center of Switzerland or its mission and other values, then the Figu Mother Center of Switzerland, Hinterschmidt-Ruti, 8495 Schmidt-Ruti, Cha-ZH, can dissolve the correspondingly fallible American Figu Group and declare it null and void. These are the most important points which still have to be worked into the statutes for the American grouping and may under no circumstances be omitted.
To what extent are we at the Mother Center or the core group of 49 actually obligated to work for the mission in America?
Your task lies solely in the overall area of the German language. For America, you are working according to your own decision and according to your own free will, so there is no fixed obligation for you in this regard. For our part, we distance ourselves directly from this country, because in many respects it does not correspond to many human rights and laws. as well as many humane rules and in many-fold form to human dignity, as one can demand of a country that is led in a humane and therefore human and human-worthy manner. So we see America out of consideration of your responsibility in every respect. But if you do engage in activities for this country, then you must be extremely careful with your security in every respect, because the incredibly primitive legislation and inhumane criminal legislation and its primitive and inhumane forms of imprisonment, etc., could endanger and destroy everything of your possessions and even the whole mission. So, extreme caution is required for you in every respect of interaction with America in any wise. Thus, it is also necessary for you to safeguard yourselves in the best possible manner with regard to all kinds of things with regard to American FIGU groupings by means of appropriate articles of the statutes as well as contracts and provisions, etc. with regard to America and the laws which prevail there. I must repeat that extreme caution is required for the FIGU of the Mother Center of Switzerland, which is why special security measures must be taken with regard to the formation of American FIGU groups.
Yes, these are all the things you asked me to name and order at the General Assembly. In fact, unfortunately, I have forgotten them. This will certainly not happen again, because this time they will not be said offhand, but officially, so they will appear in the report of the meeting and will be openly accessible to all group members.
That would have been necessary already with my explanations, but unfortunately we discussed these matters outside of the official conversation.
Yes, that is right, but we cannot always pay attention in all conversations to what needs to be officially mentioned in addition to the otherwise already official information, etc. Besides, the contact report conversations in written form would become more and more extensive.
That is correct. We also have to take into account that often matters are discussed that do not belong to the public and must remain secret in other ways. If we were to transmit the entire conversation material in each case, it would be very troublesome for you to remove from the respective conversation report everything that is not intended for the public and also not for the group members.
When you are right, you are right. But now something else. In certain cases, we make calculations of a person's life expectancy, especially when someone is elevated to the presidency of a country, etc. Do you also make such calculations, for example regarding your person, who is of a certain importance?
This is indeed the case. Yes, and this is because through this, certain plans and goals can be created and these can be efficiently striven for, carried out and achieved, because the time for the realization of a plan and the fulfillment of a task, as well as the achievement of a goal, can be calculated exactly. And if you ask me how the calculations look like with regard to my person, then I may well tell you the result, which is 1,218 years.
That is how old I want to be. The things I could do there. Man, oh man. But I will be knocked off the tree much earlier. What I mean is that I will not get that old because I will die much earlier and enter the eternal hunting grounds. But to think about that and to mourn would be out of place. Bang, there he is. You finished your work yet, Quetzal?
That is of correctness. The rest I will do in 2 or 3 days. If it is all right with you, I would like to talk to you for a while, in a purely private wise.
Nothing stands in the way of that.
Then I will say goodbye now, dear friend. It will not be very long before I visit you again. And what I want to say, next Thursday, Njana will be doing corrections with Bernadette and you. But the week after I will be in charge again, and maybe Florina too if something should arise that requires me otherwise. Goodbye, Edward.
Goodbye, Ptah. Thank you for your visit, for your patience, and for your repeated explanations. Sahlomi, and off he goes. It is always funny, Quetzal, even though I got used to your sudden appearance and disappearance from the very beginning. It always touches me strangely every time. You are just suddenly there or gone again. It is just all very different from the way you see it on TV when they beam in the future films. The flickering etc. shown there is simply completely missing, because everything is really so lightning fast that there is no flickering effect or the like.
The strange thing you are talking about, I think, is understandable. But now I want to discuss some important things with you. On the one hand, these are of a purely private nature. On the other hand, they concern matters relating to meditation, which I will address first. As Ptah has already explained to you, from now on the later evening meditation taking place in the center will be postponed by 30 minutes, both in wintertime and in summertime. So during wintertime it is to be done at 20:30 hours, and during summertime at 21:30 HRs. In the future, meditations can also be done in the Sohar Center at these times, if any group members have chosen to do the Sohar meditation at these times. From now on, this also applies to all other center meditation times, at which meditation can also be done in the Sohar Center, which will certainly be a relief for some group members. Unsuccessful meditations in the Sohar Center, such as entering the meditation room too late or falling asleep during meditation, only need to be made up for once. The same will apply in the future to all incidents that lead to impairment or failure of the meditation. Regarding the meeting on these Fridays, I recommend that it should be concluded on the full hour after the meditation. All other measures for multiple meditation repetition, which have been necessary up to now, will be dropped from now on. All other necessary matters, such as those concerning hygiene care and other temporal changes, have already been explained, and you have also recorded these in the Contact Conversation Report of April 4th. With this, I have explained everything necessary in this regard, so I will now turn to private matters.
Please, I am all ears.
Then I will first bring up the following. If there are any further matters arising in this regard, I will turn to you again and seek your advice, if you will allow me.
Of course, that really should not be a question. But honestly, sometimes I feel quite strange when you and Ptah and various others of you ask me for advice, since you are all much older than me and have experienced and lived more than I have. Especially when Ta asks me for advice. I sometimes do not know whether I should sink into the ground because of the shame that rises up inside me, because I am asked for advice by an older gentleman who is more than 700 years older than me. Especially to him, I must seem like a boy who still has a lot to learn. Only my reverence for him, as for the rest of you, always prevents me from—
Excuse me, dear friend, but I must interrupt you, for you are humiliating yourself. You may not be very old in years from your point of view towards us, but in the end, it is not these, but your ability, your experience, your lived experiences, as well as the knowledge and skills, and therefore your knowledge and wisdom in relation to the spiritual teaching, the spiritual and creational laws and recommendations, and their causes and effects. It is not only your lived experiences and experiences as well as abilities, etc., which you have lived, collected, made, and created in this life of yours, nor the knowledge, wisdom, and love from this life of yours alone, which altogether surpasses much that we have experienced and collected in our own lives despite our higher years of life. But it is especially all those great and immeasurable values which have been deposited since time immemorial by all your personalities that have appeared since then in various planetary as well as galactic and universal memory banks, and can only be retrieved by your respective personalities in each individual life, without us or other people being given the possibility to retrieve all these stored values as well. In this case, We are dependent on you releasing this immense knowledge, this love and wisdom, and all this immeasurable information to us. But this is understandable to you, because your earliest personalities of earliest lives existed for a very long time, many millions and even billions of years before ours, and consequently, through our own personalities of all former lives and until today, there was no possibility to deposit such enormous and immeasurable values in the most diverse planetary, galactic, and universal memory banks from which we could profit today. So we are dependent on your explanations and advice, as well as on the higher concerns of the teaching of the Spirit through your person, because only you are able to give them to us, because only you are able to use all the frequencies of your former personalities in a harmonious form, to establish and apply all the deposited knowledge, all the love and wisdom as well as the cognitions, experiences, lived experience and capabilities, and all the ability and understanding, etc., again and again, in every new life, of every new personality. And all these values surpass all spiritual and creational knowledge, as well as in regard to the laws and recommendations connected with them, which is why in many of these matters we come to you for clarifications, elaborations, explanations, teachings, and advice, not only we individually, but also our entire spiritual leadership, for which you do so many and important written works. Work for which we all can never thank you enough, as well as for the personal and life-related advice that you always work out and give us in such detail, whereby it should not be misunderstood that you are also superior to us in these personal and life-related matters as a result of your experiences and your lived experience of this existence, as well as of the invaluable and extremely valuable possibility of being able to make use of all your memory bank recordings, and thus the memory bank information that go back to the times. So it is in...
But finally make a point, my friend. I do not like it, and besides, I could fall to delusions of grandeur from all this. Everything already sounds like I am the brightest on the earth.
This is very true with regard to the knowledge, the cognitions, and the wisdom, as well as capabilities concerning the teaching of the Spirit, that is to say, the spiritual teaching and the creation teaching, as well as the use of certain consciousness powers, consciousness capabilities and spirit capabilities, like for example the spiritual telepathy, which no earth human is capable of, other than you.
You see, this is exactly why people have been attacking me for years, making me out to be the greatest, the brightest, the most clever, the most able, the most knowledgeable, and so on. But when I think of all the things I do not know and cannot do not understand and cannot control, I feel like the smallest worm in the universe, even less than the tiniest microbe. For I know that I do not know much, if I may say so, with regard to all things that are outside of that which relates to the spiritual and creational, and to the laws and recommendations relating to it. I can certainly fall back on a certain life experience and on lived experiences, as well as on some capabilities which have resulted from my present life, but I cannot and do not want to shine with it, even if perhaps some things have been extraordinary and not commonplace and are not experienced and lived by human beings en masse, etc. For this reason, however, I do not think and feel greater or more important than any other human being. In fact, I think and feel equal to any other earthling or anyone else in the depths of the universe, and no matter if child, woman, or man. So I am no more and no less than any other human being. Effectively, I am neither a hero nor a superhuman, nor supernatural or omnipotent. Truly, all my life I have tried to be no more and no less than a man of action, to fulfill my duty as a human being and my mission and my promise in this regard, without deriving might from it in any form whatsoever, without making profit from it, without being arrogant, sectarian, lying, unjust and domineering or indulging in idleness, exploiting my fellow human beings or oppressing, harming, harassing or enslaving, subjugating or deceiving them, etc. I would like to say this very clearly and plainly for all those who slanderously spread other things about me, who accuse me of all these mentioned things and malignities and try to blame me.
We know that evil-minded ones are spreading these forms of slander to you. But we all know very well that none of these slanders apply. It is nevertheless very regrettable that such untruths are spread. Unfortunately, misunderstandings and lowly intelligent presumptions, which often lead to misunderstandings which can be rationally clarified with you and by the facts, by those who spread lies and slander about you, misunderstand any things, and accordingly also form a wrong idea or attitude with evil and unjust thoughts and feelings towards you. Such misunderstandings, etc., often arise in group members as well, whereby they generate unpleasant thoughts in themselves against you and your actions and behavior. And all of this usually only because they do not understand or misinterpret relevant circumstances, or believe that something on your part must be handled differently. This is very unfortunate, because we all know very well that your actions and behavior are usually well considered, and you have your very specific reasons for this, which I know you will explain in detail to anyone interested at any time if asked. However, such inquiries are usually not made by the group members, which means that the misunderstandings remain. In addition, there is also the factor that some group members overestimate their own logical thinking, and therefore make an unobjective higher valuation in this respect than is actually true. I have taken your word for it, which you have often used in our private conversations, that the chicks want to be smarter than the hen. And unfortunately, this is exactly what applies to certain group members, which unfortunately leads to disagreements and misunderstandings.
You speak a word of truth. But there are other things that we should say something about and that I just talked about with a group member on Sunday. It is about the fact that if any activities are carried out by individuals who are usually given free rein to carry out the work, they cannot understand and cannot muster the necessary tolerance if someone else, like me, for example, also has an idea for the work or object in question and submits it, which perhaps or certainly brings an improvement in terms of beauty or innovativeness, etc. How do you see and assess this? The experience and those lived experiences with you, since all the years of our acquaintance, has always shown me clearly and distinctly that even if you have already set up a concept or realized something, you have always been so tolerant that you have always accepted an idea from someone else and used it. Even after the fact, if it brought about an improvement or otherwise changed something in terms of beauty or in some other way for the better. I also did the same with you when I had to do a job or something else, or had already done it, and you brought me an idea that could improve something. Also, you very often took my ideas as a stimulus for changes, without you feeling affected in your free wise of acting, as I always thought for me. Throughout my life, I have only insisted, and I continue to do so today and for all time, that something should be done exactly the way I wanted it. Only when I knew for sure that something could only be done right and made right, etc., if it was handled and created in a very specific form. If that is not the case, if I interfere in a work in this wise, then I let everyone do his or her work as they want to, and can do it at their own discretion. Otherwise, however, it should really be the case that every person who independently or under guidance carries out a job, or creates an object or a construction, etc., should be tolerant enough to incorporate and realize a passable idea of another person if it brings an improvement of any kind, without thoughts and feelings of one's own inhibitions, limitations in free action, interference in one's work, embarrassment or discrimination, self-worthlessness, etc., arise.
Your words correspond to my opinion, which is also peculiar to all of us, because we learn this from the bottom up through our education, together with the fact that one should never sit above another person because one is never more or less than one's neighbor. People who do not accept the ideas and opinions of others overestimate themselves and, moreover, are not capable of adapting to the opinion or idea, etc., of another person, because there is a certain form of self-prejudice and self-overestimation, as well as arrogance and self-overestimation, which prevents any reasonable tolerance. These unvalues also include the non-acceptance of the neighbor, as well as his or her actions and behavior, etc., in combination with unfair and unconsidered thoughts and feelings, with often openly or hidden expressed defamations and other unobjective expressions and attacks against the neighbor, whose words, thoughts, and feelings, as well as his or her actions and behavior, are not understood, and for this reason alone are not accepted. Independent, rational, and logical thinking, if such a thing can be brought to bear at all, which is very often extremely doubtful in many Earth humans, unfortunately does not find any application, because everything is only looked at and rushed through within one's own framework of ego-centeredness, which inevitably leads to completely wrong ideas, opinions, condemnations, views, and misjudgments.
Thank you for your explanation, which is also in line with my view and understanding. However, to be honestly said, I also expected an explanation from you as Ishwish, which must be in line with the ancient values and insights of human behavior. These value forms and knowledge forms, however, are not yet comprehensible to many Earth humans, which is why they vehemently rebel against them and refuse in every respect to think about them and to draw the right conclusions from them, in order to change for the better, to learn to be progressive and to evolve. In doing so, they always declare that they have made an effort about their progress, about the betterment, and about their evolution, but in most cases, the only fact is that they are not working on themselves in the forms that are related to this, but are only looking at their neighbor and his or her actions and behaviors in order to find fault with them, even though the complainants suffer from the same evils. Furthermore, the advice of the objectors are usually simply thrown to the wind in such a wise that no thought is given to one's own person, nor to one's own actions and behavior, nor to one's own thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because all of these things are considered to be sufficiently or even perfectly correct and not of value for change. So the awkwardness and shortcomings of all kinds of self-evolution are not considered at all and consequently are not recognized, which in turn leads to the fact that the teachers or instructors with their teachings, statements, explanations, and advice, etc., are not taken into account, but are even accused of being deficient in their actions and behavior, and so on and so forth.
Unfortunately, we had to make this realization with regard to the entire behavior and action of the Earth humans, as well as with regard to their world of emotions, thoughts, and feelings in this regard.
Exactly. Then we are in agreement. Also with regard to the fact that the teachers and instructors are always just running, because the eggs or the chicks want to be smarter than the hen.
I already said that this is actually true. But now I have to finish our conversation because I have to go back to my obligations. In a few days I will be back here to do the rest of the work. So until then, goodbye.
Salami and goodbye. One moment, please. I have another question that was asked to me and that I could not answer. If you can give me a short answer.
What is it about?
Aristotle, Diogenes, and Socrates. Were there any contacts between them and extraterrestrials? I am referring especially to the Lyrans, Vegans, and Pleiaren.
There is nothing in our records that would indicate any contact between any of those you mentioned.
So that means there was no contact.
That is of correctness.
The question came from a man in Greece, a certain Christos Alonistiotis.
Now I really must go, my friend. Farewell.
Goodbye, and thank you very much for all your information and explanations. Take care.
Salome, you tireless questioner. See you in a few days.